Hi, my name is Mohammad Hazim and I am a PhD candidate from Sultan Idris Education University and I'm specialized in educational psychology, and I would like to present my conceptual paperwork entitled of Children's Psychological Support through the Application of Biomorphic Concept and Intervention in Educational Psychology. So before we go further in our discussions, I would like to explain a little bit more about psychological disorder. So basically, psychological disorder refer to cognitive and affective related disorder where an individual is unable to control their stress. All of these development components will experience a psychological disorder. So psychological disorder can be divided into three parts, namely a psychosis, neurosis, and personality disorder. So a person who lack of self-efficacy is unable to handle stress well and unable to work productively. So psychological disorder can be caused by environmental, school, peer, or even a genetic factor. So let's see what is actually a psychological support. Support is defined as anything provided as assistance, meanwhile recovery refers to the act of restoring or returning to the original conditions. So psychological supports refers to help given to the children who suffer from psychological disorder and potentially have a problems in learning process, especially in academic, and are rejected in the social community for having a bad self-image. So they also have a potentials of having troubles in socializing with their peers or people who are older than them. The World Health Organization has drafted a monograph-based guideline entitled The Development of Mental Health in Children and Adolescents. It's planning on a policies that covering schemes on how to implement strategic method for the recovery or rehabilitations of children and adolescents as in an effort to promote to the public on healthy mental development. So basically, children can get the psychological support either at home or at schools. So in general, when children are at schools, educational psychologists will play an important role to give them psychological support that allow children to express their emotion. Role to give them psychological support mean how they will respond to the crucial building blocks of good mental health. Educational psychologists can practice regulating emotion with children by mounting strategies to understand and manage aggravation, lividness, and sadness when those feeling is unmanageable. Even under the best circumstances, it is not easy to differentiate between challenging behavior and emotion that are shown consistently by typical child development or those that are cause for a concern. It is consequential to put in mind that many disorders like anxiety, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, depression do occur during childhood. So psychological assessment can be administered and the result may suggest that a children's behavior is related to changes of stress either at home or schools. So the result of psychological assessment for which psychological support could be in psychotherapy, medication, counseling, or intervention support either from a teachers or a family. In this study, we are going to implement a biomorphic concept. So each biomorphic design has its own specific meaning, which symbol is significant to the experience, event, or something that happened. So by using biomorphic concept, it can help a person to express their emotion through certain aesthetic value. So this biological and nature concept is also capable in forming creative analogies and thoughts. Biomorphic aesthetic can be divided into two. The first one is the aesthetic of fauna organisms, and the second one is the aesthetic of flora organisms. So basically, educational psychologists will assign them a theme, either a flora or fauna, and the children will choose a living organism as their source of inspiration. They will be asked to select living organisms which have significant relationship with the emotion they are trying to express. Through the first phase, there are a few phases in implementing biomorphic concept to help children with psychological disorder. So the first phase is educational psychologists will guide the children to get their inspiration by using either aesthetic of fauna organism or aesthetic of flora organism chosen which has the significant features or characteristic with the emotion or issue faced by them at the point of time. So the medium can be used to implement this biomorphic concept either is painting or clay for the process of sketching and design. These sketches and design help educational psychologists to grasp the children's choice and the aesthetic value related to their emotion for their emotions, issues, or problem faced at that time. In the second stage, aesthetic of shape structure is applied, where every shape made by the children represents their emotion at the moment. And then the third stage is on aesthetic of physical structure. This is also represents the children's emotion that can be explored further. The fourth stage is aesthetic of abdomen, if the fauna selected as an insect, for example, and for the aesthetic of flora organism is aesthetic of color. In the fifth stage, the aesthetic of flora organism is the aesthetic of color, in which this aesthetic plays an essential role in indicating the exploration in their emotion in depth. With the expression of this emotion, it is hoped that children will feel relief and get a catharsis. Throughout the implementation of biomorphic concept as intervention in psychological recovery or rehabilitation for children, there are 6 components needed to be emphasized by the educational psychologists. The first component is to build rapport to relationship with the first component is to build rapport or relationship with the children. The second component is to set goal for the sessions, means what do the children want in the end of the sessions and what do the educational psychologist wants to lead the session itself. So the third component is to evaluate or assess to and listen well. So basically, in this third component, educational psychologists need to evaluate priority of the issues, if conflicted, for example, and listens to correct or not by using a small or large formulation, techniques, or question with or close-ended questions. So either a question with open or closed-ended questions. So the fourth component is psychological screening. This is very important in identifying the level of the children's emotional state, and if they need help from a specialist, then it is the educational psychologist's responsibility to do the follow-up or referral. So the fifth component is in the interventions, where educational psychologists need to discuss the effectiveness of the intervention implemented, whether they manage to provide a relief or catharsis to the children, or whether or not the goal of the session is successfully achieved. And the final component is the continuations of the assistance or help given by the educational psychologist to provide the children with other emotional support and the need to end the sessions. So by implementing this concept, children have the opportunity to get help and express their emotion in more structured and interesting ways. When this biomorphic concept is successfully implemented, it can help educational psychology mostly during the phase of building rapport, where children are likely to show resistance. They will feel free to let out their emotions without any obstacle or hesitation, and consequently establish the value of trust among the children and the educational psychologists. It is also helps educational psychologists in the process of exploring the children's emotions, where they can delve into them through the analysis of interpretation of aesthetic values made by the children. Hence, it facilitates both novice and semi-skilled educational psychologists in handling sessions, avoiding the lack of idea throughout the sessions are carried out. Thus, the goal of the sessions are successfully achieved. So that's all from me. Thank you.